If you ever spot a strange dark red spot inside your eggs, don't ignore it. One woman made a shocking discovery after cracking one open, and what she found sparked a chain of events that left even the experts baffled. Here's what it means. Linda's morning was like any other, a delicate balance between chaos and routine. She moved quickly through the kitchen, multitasking as she poured orange juice, put bread in the toaster, and heated a pan on the stove. Scrambled eggs were her go-to breakfast, simple, quick, and always a crowd pleaser. She grabbed the carton of eggs from the fridge, giving it a quick shake to ensure none were broken. Satisfied, she set it on the counter and cracked open the first egg. The shell split perfectly, and the egg slipped into the bowl. But instead of moving on to the next, she froze, her hand hovering above the bowl. Something was off. Linda leaned in closer, her eyebrows knitting together in confusion. Floating on top of the bright yellow yolk was a tiny, dark red spot. It looked almost like a drop of blood, but that didn't make sense. She hesitated for a moment, wondering if she'd imagined it. Maybe it was just a piece of the shell that had fallen in. To be sure, she carefully fished out the speck with the tip of a spoon. It wasn't a shell, it was a soft, reddish-brown blob that broke apart as soon as she touched it. Linda's stomach turned. The thought of serving something that looked like blood in breakfast made her feel queasy. She set the bowl aside and wiped her hands on a kitchen towel. "Must be a fluke," she murmured, grabbing another egg from the carton. She tapped the shell against the rim of the bowl, cracking it open with a quick motion. But as soon as the contents spilled out, she felt a jolt of unease wash over her. The second egg also had a small, reddish spot sitting on the yolk, almost identical to the first. 2 eggs in a row? That couldn't be normal. Linda's mind raced, trying to make sense of it. Was it a fertilized egg? A sign of contamination? She'd seen her fair share of kitchen mishaps, spoiled milk, moldy bread, even the occasional rotten egg. But she'd never seen this before. Then she reached for the third egg, hoping this one would be different. With a flick of her wrist, she cracked it open. This time, she held her breath as she watched the yolk settle into the bowl. For a second, everything looked fine, and she felt a wave of relief. But then she saw a tiny, reddish-brown speck, almost like a blood clot, right in the center of the yolk. 3 eggs, all with the same strange spot. She pushed the bowl away, staring at it as if it might offer some explanation. The kids were waiting for breakfast, but she couldn't cook these eggs. What if there was something wrong with them? What if it wasn't safe to eat? Her husband Mike walked into the kitchen, looking drowsy but content, his hair still tousled from sleep. He noticed Linda's expression immediately. "What's wrong?" he asked, peering over her shoulder. "You look like you've seen a ghost." Linda gestured to the bowl. "Look at this," she said, her voice tinged with confusion and concern. "All 3 eggs I cracked open have these red spots in them. Have you ever seen that before?" Mike frowned, leaning closer. He squinted at the reddish specks floating on the yolks. "Huh, that's weird. I've seen something like that before but never thought much of it. Maybe it's just a fluke?" Linda shook her head, feeling a knot tighten in her stomach. 3 in a row can't be a fluke. What if it's a sign of something bad? I've never seen this before and don't think it's normal. Mike gave her a reassuring smile, placing a hand on her shoulder. "I'm sure it's nothing, honey. But if you're worried, why don't you look it up or call someone who knows more about it?" Linda nodded, but she couldn't shake the unease gnawing at her. She turned back to the bowl, staring at the red spots as if they might start moving. It wasn't just a non-threatening issue. It felt like a warning, a sign that something wasn't right. And the more she thought about it, the more she realized she couldn't ignore it. At that moment, Linda knew she had to find out the truth, even if it meant delaying breakfast. She grabbed her phone and started typing, her fingers moving quickly as she searched for answers. The first results she found were inconclusive, only fueling her anxiety. Some articles said it was a harmless blood spot, while others suggested it could indicate poor egg quality or contamination. Linda glanced at the clock. Time was slipping away, and the kids were getting impatient, but she couldn't bring herself to scramble those eggs without knowing. She needed answers, and she needed them quickly. Unable to find a definitive answer, she decided to call her mother. Growing up on a farm, her mother knew more about food and produce than anyone Linda knew. If anyone could shed light on this, it was her. "Mom, have you ever seen red spots inside eggs?" Linda asked as soon as her mother picked up. Her mother's voice was calm, but curious. "Red spots? Oh yes, I've seen those before. It's usually just a blood spot, nothing to worry about. It happens when a small blood vessel in the hen's ovary bursts. Just scoop it out and you're good to go." Linda frowned. "But what if there are multiple eggs with spots? I cracked 3 in a row and all of them had it. That can't be normal, right?" There was a brief silence on the other end of the line. When her mother spoke again, her tone was more serious. 3 in a row? That's odd, Linda. It could be a sign of stress in the hen, or maybe something's wrong with the flock they came from. You might want to be cautious. Where did you buy these eggs? Linda glanced at the carton. It was a famous organic brand she'd bought from the local supermarket. She hadn't expected to find anything unusual in what was supposed to be a high-quality product. I got them at the grocery store. They're supposed to be organic, Linda replied, feeling her anxiety spike. Her mother sighed. Sometimes even organic farms have issues. Maybe it's nothing, but I'd suggest calling the store and asking if anyone else reported this. Better safe than sorry. Linda thanked her mother and hung up, her mind buzzing with even more questions. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Taking her mother's advice, she called the grocery store. After a few minutes on hold, she was connected with a manager. "Hi, I'm calling about a carton of eggs I bought earlier this week," Linda began, trying to keep her voice steady. "I found red spots inside 3 of them. Has anyone else reported this issue?" The manager's response was polite but dismissive. "I haven't heard any complaints like that. It's probably just a blood spot, which was harmless. If you're concerned, we can refund or replace them." Linda felt a wave of frustration. It wasn't about the money, but figuring out if these eggs were safe to eat. She thanked the manager and hung up, feeling no closer to an answer. Her gaze drifted back to the bowl on the counter. The red spots seemed to stare back at her, almost daring her to ignore them. She decided to take the matter further and called the local health department. A stern but kind representative listened as she described what she'd found. "We take food safety concerns very seriously," the representative said. "I'll need details about where and when you purchased these eggs. Also, could you send us photos or a video of the egg? This will help our team understand the issue better and assist in our investigation." Linda quickly agreed. She snapped several close-up pictures of the cracked egg, clearly showing the dark red spot inside. She even recorded a short video, zooming in to capture the unusual mark while explaining what she had noticed. "I've just sent them over," Linda replied, her voice steady despite her nerves. "Please let me know as soon as you find anything." "We will," the representative assured her. "In the meantime, I advise you to avoid consuming more eggs from this carton until we finish our inspection. We appreciate your vigilance. This could help prevent potential health risks." Linda ended the call and exhaled slowly, feeling relief and unease. Now she could only wait and hope she'd done the right thing by reporting it. Hours passed, and Linda couldn't stop thinking about the eggs. The kids had settled for toast and cereal that morning, but her appetite had disappeared. Every time she walked past the kitchen counter, she glanced at the carton as if it held some dark secret she couldn't quite uncover. 3 days later, just as Linda was about to start making lunch, her phone finally rang. She had been anxiously checking her phone every few hours, half expecting a call but still dreading the response. Seeing the caller ID flash with the health department's number, her heart skipped a beat. Linda's pulse quickened as she answered, bracing herself for the news. Had she stumbled upon something dangerous? Was there a broader issue at play? "Hello, is this Linda?" A calm but serious voice greeted her. "Yes, this is Linda," she managed, her voice shaky with anticipation and nerves. She pressed the phone tighter against her ear, hoping for clarity but fearing the worst. "This is James from the health department," the representative said, his tone serious. "We've completed our preliminary investigation into the eggs you reported. I wanted to update you on what we found." Linda could feel her pulse pounding in her ears. She put down the knife she was using to chop vegetables, her full attention now on the call. Mike, sensing her urgency, paused what he was doing and leaned in closer to listen. "We contacted the supplier and thoroughly inspected their facilities," James continued. "There was a significant issue with one of the hen flocks. They were experiencing a condition called avian coccidiosis, a parasitic infection that can stress the hens and cause internal bleeding. This likely led to the blood spots you found in the eggs." Linda's breath hitched. The word infection sent a chill down her spine. "So these eggs were contaminated?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Yes and no," James clarified. "The blood spots themselves weren't harmful if the eggs were properly cooked. However, the infection indicated poor health conditions among the hens, which could indicate inadequate sanitation at the farm. More troubling, this could mean there was a risk of bacterial contamination like salmonella." Linda felt her stomach drop. Salmonella wasn't something to take lightly. It could cause severe food poisoning, especially in children and older people. Her mind recalled that morning when she almost scrambled those eggs for her kids. What if she hadn't noticed the spots? What if she had fed them contaminated food? "I can't believe this," Linda muttered, more to herself than to the representative. "How did this even happen? I thought I was buying high-quality organic eggs." James sighed. "It's a common misconception. Organic doesn't always mean safer or cleaner. In this case, the farm likely cut corners on health checks and maintenance. We've advised them to issue a voluntary recall of this batch of eggs while we conduct further testing. I would strongly suggest discarding any remaining eggs you have." Mike put his hand on Linda's shoulder as he heard the seriousness of the conversation. But Linda wasn't ready to let this go just yet. The fact that she had almost served potentially dangerous eggs to her family weighed heavily on her. "Was anyone else at risk?" she asked, her voice filled with a protective edge. "Are there other reports like mine?" James hesitated for a moment, then spoke carefully. "You were the first to report it, but we've had similar cases since then. It seems like this batch was widely distributed. Your quick action may have prevented more people from getting sick." Linda's hands trembled as she processed his words. Relief washed over her, mixed with a sharp sting of anger. It shouldn't have come to this. People shouldn't have had to worry about the safety of something as simple as eggs, especially when they went out of their way to buy organic, supposedly higher quality products. "Thank you for letting me know," Linda said finally. "But this isn't over. I think people need to hear about this. They need to be aware of what they're buying." James cleared his throat. "We're issuing a public safety notice, but we can't name the company until the full investigation is complete. We don't want to cause unnecessary panic." "Unnecessary panic?" Linda repeated, incredulous. "I almost fed these to my kids. People have a right to know what they are putting on their tables." The call ended with James promising to update her, but Linda couldn't shake the feeling of responsibility. She had stumbled upon a real issue that could affect countless families like hers. Without hesitating, she turned to Mike. "We need to do more," she said. "We can't just sit back and hope the health department handles this. What if it takes weeks? People could get sick in the meantime." Mike nodded, his expression serious. "You're right. Let's put something out on social media. We need to warn people now, not later." Linda grabbed her phone and opened up her social media app. Her fingers flew across the screen as she typed out a post. "Warning. If you've bought organic eggs recently and noticed red spots, be cautious. We found blood spots in multiple eggs, and after contacting the health department, we learned there might be a contamination issue. Please check your eggs and report any problems. Stay safe, everyone." Within a week, her post started gaining traction. Comments flooded in, with people sharing their experiences and thanking her for the heads up. Some even posted pictures of similar spots they had found, confirming that this wasn't an isolated issue. The notifications kept pouring in, and Linda's phone buzzed nonstop. It was overwhelming, but she felt a strange sense of relief. At least now, people were aware. At least now they could avoid the same scare she had gone through. The real turning point came later that week when a local news station picked up her post. They reached out, asking for an interview. Linda hesitated for a moment, then agreed. It would be worth it if her story could help prevent even one family from getting sick. Talking to the reporter, Linda recounted the entire experience. She spoke about her initial confusion, frustration at the lack of answers, and shock upon learning about the possible contamination. She ended the interview with a plea to the public to stay vigilant, and a reminder that even products labeled as organic weren't always foolproof. By the time the segment aired, the recall had been officially announced. The grocery store where Linda had purchased her eggs was flooded with calls from concerned customers. It was a whirlwind of activity, but Linda felt a sense of accomplishment. Her quick thinking and determination had made a difference. Mike wrapped an arm around her shoulders as she watched the news report later that night. "You did good," he said softly. Linda nodded, feeling a mix of exhaustion and pride. She had set out to make breakfast for her family, but uncovered a bigger problem. While the mystery of the red spots was solved, it left her with a lasting lesson about the importance of questioning what we took for granted, especially regarding the food we ate. Linda returned with a carton of fresh, free-range eggs an hour later. She cracked one open, and this time, there were no red spots, just a smooth, vibrant yolk. As she scrambled the eggs, she felt a sense of peace. It wasn't just about breakfast anymore, but about making a conscious choice she could feel good about. The family gathered around the table, and as they dug into the fluffy eggs, Linda shared what she had learned. "Remember," Linda told them, "when you see something unusual, it's okay to ask questions. You never know what you might discover." And there it was. A speck in an egg that had led to a bigger story. The incident served as a reminder to consider where our food came from. Have you ever found something strange in your food that made you ask questions? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more intriguing food facts and stories.